One comment, that's all it took. So how did Peter Dinklage go from being celebrated as a trailblazer to becoming one of the most controversial figures in his own community? Let's find out. Long before Game of Thrones made him a global superstar, Peter Dinklage was just another struggling actor trying to survive in New York City. The difference was that most of the roles offered to him were roles he didn't want. For years, Hollywood had a habit of casting little people as magical creatures, comic relief characters, or fantasy sidekicks. Dinklage hated that. He wasn't interested in playing a leprechaun. He wasn't interested in wearing pointy shoes, and he definitely wasn't interested in being treated like a prop. While many actors would have accepted those jobs just to pay the bills, Dinklage often turned them down. It wasn't easy. There were times when money was tight and opportunities were limited, but he believed that accepting those roles would only reinforce stereotypes that had existed for decades. Instead, he waited for better opportunities. That decision could have destroyed his career. Instead, it ended up defining it. In 2003, Dinklage starred in a small, independent film, The Station Agent. The movie wasn't a huge blockbuster, but it was exactly the kind of role he had been searching for. His character happened to have dwarfism, but that wasn't the entire point of the story. He was a complete human being with emotions, flaws, friendships, and personal struggles. For the first time, many viewers weren't looking at Peter Dinklage and seeing the dwarf actor. They were simply seeing a great actor. The performance earned widespread praise and proved something important. Audiences were willing to embrace little people in serious, meaningful roles if Hollywood was willing to create them. That success opened doors that had previously been locked. Over the next several years, Dinklage slowly built a reputation as one of the industry's most talented performers. He appeared in movies like Elf, where he delivered one of the film's funniest scenes without simply being the punchline. The joke wasn't that he was short. The joke was that other people underestimated him. That distinction mattered. Then came Game of Thrones. Everything changed. When Dinklage was approached about playing Tyrion Lannister, he was initially skeptical. Fantasy projects had often treated little people poorly in the past, but Tyrion wasn't a stereotype. He was intelligent, he was funny, he was flawed, he was one of the most complex characters in the entire story, and Peter Dinklage brought him to life better than anyone could have imagined. Soon, Tyrion became one of the most popular characters on television. By the time Game of Thrones reached its peak, Dinklage wasn't just successful. He was arguably the most famous actor with dwarfism in the world, and that's exactly why what happened next became such a massive controversy. For most of his career, Peter Dinklage was careful when discussing representation in Hollywood. Even when he criticized certain stereotypes, he usually did it in a thoughtful way. He wasn't trying to tell other actors what jobs they should or shouldn't take. He simply chose the kinds of roles he personally wanted. But that changed in 2022. Disney was preparing a live-action remake of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. The project was already attracting attention for several casting decisions, and debates about the film were happening everywhere online. Then Peter Dinklage appeared on a podcast and shared his thoughts. He questioned why Hollywood was trying to present itself as progressive, while still telling a story centered around seven dwarves. In his view, it felt contradictory. He suggested that the movie was holding on to an outdated idea while trying to modernize everything else. The comments spread across the internet almost immediately, and that's when things got messy. The reason Dinklage's comments became such a big deal wasn't just because he made them, it was because Disney listened. Within days, Disney released a statement saying they would be taking a different approach with the Seven Dwarfs. That announcement shocked people. For years, Peter Dinklage had been one voice among many actors discussing representation in Hollywood, but now it looked like one podcast interview had influenced the direction of a major Disney movie. Suddenly, his words carried enormous weight, and many people inside the dwarfism community weren't happy about it. Here's where the controversy took an unexpected turn. Many people assumed actors with dwarfism would support Dinklage's comments. Instead, some of the loudest criticism came from little people themselves. Why? Because those seven dwarf roles represented seven major acting opportunities, not just seven jobs. Seven potentially career-changing jobs. Major Disney productions create opportunities far beyond the actors on screen. There are stunt performers, stand-ins, promotional appearances, interviews, and future casting opportunities that can come from being associated with a huge film. For many actors with dwarfism, opportunities like that are rare, and now it looked like those opportunities might disappear. Instead of creating deeper characters, Disney seemed to be considering removing them altogether. That wasn't what many actors wanted. Several performers with dwarfism publicly voiced their frustration. Some argued that if the original story needed updating, then Disney should have rewritten the characters instead of removing them. Others believed the dwarfs were actually heroes in the story and could have been portrayed with far more depth than previous versions. Their argument was simple: improve the roles, don't erase them. To many critics, Disney's response felt like an overcorrection. Rather than creating better representation, the studio appeared to be avoiding representation entirely. And because Peter Dinklage's comments happened right before the changes, many people blamed him. Whether that was fair or not became the center of the debate. As the controversy grew, some actors became increasingly direct. Comedians, performers, and entertainers with dwarfism began speaking openly about their disappointment. Many felt Dinklage was looking at the issue from the perspective of someone who had already made it. After all, Peter Dinklage no longer needed roles like Snow White. He was already an Emmy-winning actor with worldwide fame, but for struggling performers trying to break into Hollywood, those opportunities still mattered. That created a divide. On one side were people who agreed with Dinklage's concerns about stereotypes. On the other side were people worried about losing some of the few major roles specifically available to actors with dwarfism. And as the debate became more emotional, the criticism aimed at Dinklage only got louder. Ironically, the biggest reason people became angry wasn't actually what Peter Dinklage said. It was what happened afterward. As Disney tried to avoid criticism, the studio kept changing its approach. First, reports suggested the traditional dwarves would be replaced by a group of magical creatures. Then, after another wave of backlash, Disney appeared to move toward using CGI characters instead. That decision created an entirely new controversy. Many actors with dwarfism felt Hollywood had learned the wrong lesson. Instead of hiring real performers and writing better characters, studios seemed to be looking for ways to avoid casting little people altogether. For critics, that was worse than the original problem. They argued that representation wasn't being improved, it was being removed. And because Peter Dinklage's comments helped start the conversation, many people held him responsible, whether he intended that outcome or not. Another criticism aimed at Dinklage is that he built part of his own career playing fantasy characters. After all, Tyrion Lannister existed in a fantasy world. He appeared in Game of Thrones, one of the biggest fantasy franchises ever created. He also took roles in movies like Avengers, Infinity War, and The Chronicles of Narnia, projects that included fantastical elements. Critics argue that once Dinklage became successful through those opportunities, he started criticizing similar roles for others. Supporters push back on that argument. They point out that Dinklage never said little people shouldn't appear in fantasy stories. His issue was with shallow stereotypes, not fantasy itself. To them, there's a huge difference between playing a fully developed character like Tyrion Lannister and being reduced to a one-dimensional joke. And honestly, that's where much of this debate becomes complicated. At its core, this controversy isn't really about Peter Dinklage. It's about two goals that seem to clash with each other. One side wants better representation. The other side wants more opportunities. The problem is that Hollywood often acts as if it can only choose one. Many actors with dwarfism believe both are possible. They argue that studios should create meaningful characters while still providing jobs for performers with dwarfism. In other words, update the story if necessary, but don't erase the people who could play those roles. That's a position many people find reasonable. So, was the backlash against Peter Dinklage justified? The answer depends on who you ask. It's fair to understand why many actors felt frustrated. Some genuinely believed major opportunities disappeared because of comments made by Hollywood's most influential little person.